Courageous females, pirates Anne Bonny and Mary Read.
Anne Bonny was born in Ireland to a lawyer and his maid. Her father had an affair while his wife was out of town. As a child, Anne's father dressed her as a boy to keep her disguised. He brought her mother to live with him, and when this created a bad reputation for him and his business began to slow, they packed up and moved to the Carolinas. He switched professions and began to make a fortune. Her father was very successful and purchased a plantation. However, with the sickness and death of Anne's mother, Anne began taking over domestic affairs for her father. Young men courted Anne as she was a woman of desirable fortune. However, she followed her heart and married a sailor who was penniless. Her father was so upset Anne was cut off, and she, alongside her husband, sailed for the Bahamas looking for work.
Mary Read was born in England, outside London, in the year 1690. Her mother was not married to her father, and she was the child of an affair. Her mother's actual husband was a sailor. When her mother found out about her, she moved away from in-laws so that Mary would remain a secret. Her half-brother was a legitimate child of her mother's marriage, but he died. Upon learning of his death, Mary's grandmother would have stopped sending money to support her mother. So her mother dressed Mary Read as a boy and claimed that she was her son, as this was the only way to fool them. This worked until Mary's grandmother died, and Mary found work as a footboy for a French woman. She was the victim in her mother's crime, and as she grew up was perceived as a male. Read had a craving for adventure, and so she joined a foot and horse regiment. She was seen as a brave cadet, and during this period of her life, she fell in love with her tentmate and revealed her femininity, and they were soon married. They were discharged from the service together and started a business, an inn. Read's husband had a weak immune system, and Mary Read again put on her trousers. She saw the need to provide for herself, and Read then moved to and joined a foot regiment in Holland. Since it was the time of peace, they had no need for a large standing regiment, so she sought employment on a merchant ship bound for the West Indies.
Anne Bonny met Jack Rackham, captain of the pirate ship Revenge, and the two began to develop feelings for each other, so Anne was separated from her own husband and married the captain. Because Anne had already been married, Captain Jack tried to bribe her husband to divorce her, but he would not oblige. Anne's husband was upset that Anne was leaving him, so he had her charged with adultery and sentenced to a flogging. The evening that this was supposed to take place, Captain Jack rescued Anne and set sail with its crew. In this situation, a wife sale may be customary. A wife sale is a way of ending a marriage with both parties agreeing to the idea. In Anne's case, she tried to initiate the sale, which was not customary. However, no one agreed to witness the transaction, as one person reported this to Governor Rogers. Bonny and Rackham declared revenge on the man who reported their situation and swore that if they were able to find him, they would have whipped him to death. Anne could not board the ship as a woman, so she disguised herself as a man. At one point, Anne discovered that she was pregnant, and Captain Jack left her in Cuba with some friends to be taken care of until the baby was born. Once she had given birth, Anne sent for Jack and came back on board the ship with him. Captain Jack and his crew were very successful in their pirating. They picked up an English crew member from a Dutch merchant ship, and he and Anne soon became very close friends. The captain became very jealous of the man, until Anne revealed to him that the man was actually a woman named Mary Read, who was also in disguise. According to the two captains of the crew, any time the crew saw any vessel, gave chase, or attacked, Read and Bonny wore men's clothes, but at any other time were freely dressed like women, and the women did not seem to be kept or detained by force, and were pirates of their own free will and consent. Thomas Dillon, a captive, described them both as being very profligate, cursing and swearing much, and very ready and willing to do anything on board. Mary had fallen in love with another crew member, a man who she was willing to fight for. One day, he got on the wrong side of a pretty tough pirate, was challenged to a duel, and Mary knew that he would not have been able to survive. So she intentionally got into a fight with the other pirate and scheduled a duel for 2 hours before her lovers. She won so his life was spared without him having to look like a coward. The man she fought for was the man she would later marry.
The law finally caught up with the pirate crew in 1720 thanks to the British Navy station near Jamaica. Captain Jack Rackham, also known as Calico Jack, was convicted and sentenced to be hanged with the rest of his crew. The two women were captured and both pled their bellies, claiming to be pregnant. They were both convicted of their crimes and sentenced to be executed, but their executions were delayed due to their children. While being detained in jail, Mary Read fell ill and died before her execution was carried out. Anne Bonny, however, was pardoned due to unknown reasons. Some say it was her father's fortune that bought her favor.
While the lives of Mary Read and Anne Bonny were far from glamorous, they were both brave and heroic members of their crews. They proved that as women they could do anything that the men on board could do, and sometimes more. Both women were able to do their duties on ship and were able to survive anything from an early age. Both had training in their background and through their experiences were able to handle the hardships of being a pirate on the rough seas. One of the most important characteristics that helped them survive was courage. Both used it as a resource, and the idea of it helped them get through any challenges they came across.